in a very, very sunny Europe to preview this new Watch and Wonders Digital, first ever. So very excited, also because you are my very first interview.
What an honor! I can't believe it. That's amazing.
I mean, you are the king, so I couldn't start first without you. So how is life in Singapore?
I have to say, life in Singapore is quite good, actually. You know, we've been pretty much open throughout the majority of the last couple of months. Life is, I wouldn't say back to normal, but everyone's optimistic. I have been registered now to get my vaccine soon, so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Or I'm looking forward to the future where I can reconnect with amazing people like yourself, sir.
All right, so what do you think about this new Watch and Wonders Digital, this first one? What is your expectation compared to the more traditional fairs that we had in the past?
I think it's a great tool. I think it's a wonderful way to use technology to make sure that we can all enjoy all the new watches that are being released. But to be honest with you, I cannot wait to once again be face-to-face and person-to-person with amazing people in the industry, and most importantly, touch and feel the watches. So it's super funny because at the beginning of this year, I was already like, oh, okay, I love the new launches from Bulgari. These watches are incredible. The steel chronograph is great, but now with the screw-down crown, so you can, really use it as a sports watch. But I should have known that there would be more. And what you have just launched in terms of the Perpetual Calendar, I mean, you never failed to amaze me. You blew me away again, the world's thinnest automatic Perpetual Calendar, and not only that, double retrograde. Sir, it is amazing. Tell me a little bit about this.
So you liked it first?
I love it. I love it.
Obviously, this Perpetual Calendar for us is very special. It's a grande complication, needless to say that. It's quite a very long time we didn't come with a Perpetual Calendar. And obviously we wanted not only to be the most elegant and contemporary on the market, hence through the Finissimo approach, but we wanted also, that it be a Perpetual Calendar with a signature, and you perfectly got it through the retrograde decision, because this is, I think, not unique to Bulgari, but to some extent very, very attributable to Bulgari, this retro system. And last but not least, we wanted it also to be very daily and convenient. I mean, this is also the philosophy behind the Octo Finissimo world record, that there are not only, extraordinary complications as most of them, but also real daily watches. And the decision to go for a 60 hours power reserve, which is positioning the Perpetual Calendar, obviously, in the league of a watch that you can really wear easily and daily. And if ever, for whatever reason, over the weekend, you prefer to wear something a bit more sporty, like an aluminium, for instance, just to mention one, then with the 60 hours, you're fine until you're 2100. So it leaves some time for the user. So for all those reasons, I think that this was really the right evolution of Finissimo to bring, because it's adding to the existing range from regular watches, if I may say so, like the steel S we've seen last year, and now the new chronograph you were mentioning, to the high end of Finissimo in terms of complication, the tourbillon, rather than the minute repeater, and now the Perpetual Calendar. So the only thing missing probably today in Finissimo is the Grande Sonnerie.
Is that a hint of something to come eventually?
Well, no, it's not a hint. It could be a dream, because Grande Sonnerie is obviously a challenge for an ultra-thin watch, because even if you simplify it, but if you want to get the acoustic rights, probably you have to go around 700 components. Here, for the Perpetual Calendar, we're already talking about more than 400 components in 2.75 millimeters. It's just mind-blowing. So obviously, if you engage into a challenge at 800 components, it's again a totally new movement. And de facto, for the Perpetual Calendar, As you remember, the most recent Finissimo were powered with a peripheral mass. And then for the calendar, we decided to go to the other system we have been developing, which is a macro rotor. So at the end of the day, each movement is quite complex and different. And this one, I think, with 400 components is already something which, given the thickness, 275, is probably, in terms of relationship component to thickness, the most amazing of the whole range.
Yeah, absolutely. You were mentioning 2.75 mm in terms of the thickness of the movement, 5.8 mm in terms of the thickness of the watch, which is mind-blowing, honestly, for a retrograde perpetual calendar. Jean-Christophe, I remember when you showed me the titanium minute repeater, you said, for Bulgari, we want to give a new identity to high complications, right? We want the watches to be something that you can wear, that it's kind of a stealthy way, that's a really wearable watch because it's in titanium, for example, that takes away this whole perspective that high complications need to be old-fashioned, and you can make them contemporary and fun and engaging. And that's exactly what you did. And I think this watch is probably one of the best expressions of that also because, again, everyone thinks of perpetual calendars as being kind of old-fashioned watches, something that, and bravo on that, and especially the choice of the double retrograde, which is also a clin d'oeil to Genta, of course, because they were doing, those kind of retrograde complications too. So bravo, you repositioned the perpetual calendar, sir.
We know that on such complications, some clients might really enjoy to have some very precious material. So on the one hand, obviously the flagship is the titanium. This is really the signature of the Finissimo World Record saga. But on the other hand, we have a platinum version, just because we know that some of our clients really like the idea that beside, the elegance, modernity, they like the good feeling of a precious metal. And that's why we have decided to flank the titanium with the platinum, knowing that doing so we address two different clientele, because the platinum client is not exactly the titanium client, and I think that this movement was really worth to have this, let's say, that duality or that possibility to do both things.
Yeah, I love the platinum version as well. I know you've only made it in 30 watches, and you're going to have, of course, probably a lot more people than that struggling to get allocation of this watch. That's one of the things I want to ask you, right? Because the watch you're wearing on your wrist, the aluminum, which you created, which I love, incidentally, is a brilliant watch. And then all of the Octo Finissimo range, the recurring thing I hear is it's out of stock, right? So you've worked really hard since 2014 to create an all-new icon, to get the world to understand it in the correct way, and now the world has. And now there's almost kind of a craze around all of your watches, from the aluminum range to the Octo Finissimo range. How are you struggling with creating enough watches, and where's the balance for this?
Well, actually, the complexity is that that range is made not of versions, but of very different watches or movements. As we mentioned, there is very little in common between the perpetual calendar when you're introducing this year compared to the chronograph we introduced last year. And little to compare between the chronograph and the minute repeater or the automatic self-winding watch. So the complexity of this saga is to really express, all the dimension of fine watchmaking, from hours, minutes, seconds to tourbillon chronograph rather than minute repeater. We have not to modify the movement, but to rethink and redevelop each time a different movement. So it's Finissimo, standing for ultimate masculine elegance as a benefit. But on the other hand, we are talking about virtually 7 very different movements. If you think just, about the last year's tourbillon chronograph, it's very different from the chronograph because if you have a tourbillon in the middle, you have to redesign and restructure totally the chronograph movement, because there is little you can, what we kept most from that chronograph was the peripheral mass, because this was really part of it. But most of the other components have had to be modified, simplified, some eliminated, others brought in, especially the tourbillon. And so that saga, it looks like a seamless flow of logical masterpieces adding to each other. And this is very much driven by the very strong titanium gray identity cutting across all innovations. On the other hand, I mean, each engine is a different one. Imagine, I mean, you are a Ferrari or Porsche or whatever. 1 year it's a flat six, next year it's a V12, the year after it's a V8 turbocharged, and then it's a 4 cylinders with hybrid relaying technology. So this is more or less a story of Finissimo. You know, you have a full array of engines. The common thread between them is that they are extremely small. But aside from that, I mean, they can be as different as an aspired V12 is compared to 4 cylinders connected with an hybrid system.
Yeah, it's by far the most technically innovative and ambitious family of watches in the entire industry. And just the fact that you have, you know, a laterally coupled chronograph for your chronograph GMT, and then for your tourbillon, you created a sliding pinion, but you know, using the exterior of the cage to power it. It's absolutely amazing. Okay, so let's talk about a watch that basically broke the internet a couple of years ago, and it's a collaboration that you made with a very famous Japanese architect. I believe he created also the Museum of Modern Art in Fort Worth, Texas, for example.
Yeah.
His name is Tadao Ando. And I believe, Jean-Christophe, there is another Tadao Ando watch waiting in the wings here. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the new news is not only the Perpetual Calendar. Watch and Wonders 2021 is the opportunity to further expand the Finissimo range. Even before I talk about Tadao Ando, a word on the chronograph. Last year we've introduced, I mean, the steel brush and polish hours, minutes, second watch with the blue face, complementing then the black face, which was introduced in Dubai, if you remember correctly. A big success on the market. So, and based on that, we've decided to add to the brush and polish steel Finissimo family the chronograph. So the chronograph is not only titanium. We have a new titanium version, by the way, with a black dial and a black strap, very sporty, very edgy. But we have, like, say, a kind of twin brother or cousin of the steel watch, coming in steel, brushed and polished, and with a blue face, which we're adding. So it's really now, I would say, a full collection in steel with 3 SKUs coming for the watch and 1 SKU with the chronograph. Now, Tadao Ando, we are, I would say, perpetuating something that we love to do at Bulgari, which is partnering with arts and artists. It's something, I mean, as you mentioned, that we have done in the past. We do it on watches. We do it also, I mean, on jewelry. One of our best-selling example is the B01 designed by Zaha Hadid, which has been, I mean, a huge global success and still, I mean, going on. It was sold as a capsule and eventually it has become permanent, so strong it has been. So with Tadao Ando, really, we wanted, to partner, obviously, with an artist which is, on the one hand, understanding, I mean, the DNA of Bulgari, of Finissimo, but on the other hand, bringing ideas in terms of aesthetics to the collection that probably internally we wouldn't have that spontaneously. And we need artists very often, I mean, to open our minds, to enlarge, I mean, the field of possible. And this collaboration with Tadao Ando for us is primarily great for the aesthetic outcome. You know, at the end of the day, we sell beauty. And this watch is primarily beautiful. And obviously, the fact that it has been designed by a master like Tadao adds a lot to the emotion, because you have a piece of art eventually on your wrist. and not only, I mean, a piece of fusion of Italian design and Swiss engineering.
Absolutely. So, you know, the design of this new watch is extraordinary. The original watch had this wonderful sort of spiral, which I believe it was meant to express a black hole in which time is born. And now we're adding to this the concept of a Mikazuki, which is represented by a crescent moon, but it's about the transitory nature of time. It's very poetic, sir. Tell us a little bit about this.
Well, I think that, you know, it's very much part of the Japanese culture, but beyond the Japanese culture, it's mankind, because this relation with time is an obsession of every single human being living on the planet. And so even though, I mean, the sign is a Japanese sign and it belongs to Japanese culture, the message is universal, because I think it resonates in your mind, in my mind. And so it's somehow a kind of philosophical finissimo. So we go beyond the Swiss technology or the Italian design, but also to kind of philosophical dimension, which is graphically expressed in a very, very artistic way. But at the same time, you know, when you look at your watch, yeah, you think about time passing, past time, today's time, future time, and I think that it makes you probably even more connected with your watch emotionally than on, I would say, a regular finissimo. At least for me, it would be, this is the way probably I would feel with a watch like that.
Last question for you, Jean-Christophe. I know you're a busy man, but this time last year, the world went into a kind of surreal moment, which we're only now beginning to come out of, right? We were struck by the COVID pandemic, the worldwide COVID pandemic. And I have to say, a year later, I have only grown in admiration to how you responded to that. And Bulgari, but you very specifically responded to that. I think also, you know, your creation of the Virus Eradication Fund and you funding the Oxford vaccine, right? Which is now being disseminated around the world, right? The AstraZeneca vaccine, which is incidentally also much more affordable than the other vaccines because there was...
Yeah, because AstraZeneca makes it at no profit because they really wanted to help humankind, especially those countries or people who can hardly afford to pay 20 euros.
Precisely. You know, when you were investing and supporting this, at the time, no one knew when the vaccine was going to emerge. No one knew if the vaccines were going to work. And now you cut to 1 year later, you know, and you realize that you actually, and Bulgari had a big part in basically healing the world. How does that make you feel?
Well, you know, it was a bet, obviously, because this fund was meant to finance several projects. So besides the AstraZeneca or Oxford, as you know, we are funding research in Rockefeller, but more for the testing, because testing is virtually as much important as vaccination. And the Spallanzani in Rome, which is more for the curative part. So we are kind of addressing those three major steps, you know, the prevention, the testing, and the cure, if ever, I mean, you get it. But I think that on the other end, given the credentials, betting on Oxford was not necessarily, you know, a foolish bet. Oxford is, especially in the viral sector, one of the most advanced, if not the most reputable university in the world. And therefore, we knew that if there would be some good vaccine on the market, probably Oxford would be part of them. And it has gone beyond our expectation because, as you mentioned, there is in the AstraZeneca approach, which has been the partner of Oxford to manufacture and distribute the vaccination, this generosity dimension, which is so dear to Bulgari. I mean, we are ourselves, I mean, through the fund, but also through Save the Children, through all our art patronizing programs, we are a generous company. And the fact that we could participate to the testing of vaccination, which in itself would be generous just because the manufacturer, AstraZeneca, would manufacture and distribute it at no profit, was for us something eventually making it extraordinary because it's a vaccination, yes, but it's the only generous vaccination, the same way that what we do for Save the Children, for the arts in Rome, is really based on generosity to our community. As we feel as a company, we are very privileged and we must dedicate resources and energy to generosity.
Amazing. Sorry, one very last question, sir. I would like to know from your perspective, what will 2021 be about? Will we be still primarily digital? Will we get to see one another again? And finally, for you, what will be the post-COVID watch industry would be like? You know, what will be the permanent changes and what will be the things that you think will remain and what you think will go back to normal?
Well, let's start maybe with the second question and then close with the first one, if you don't mind. Well, I think the post-COVID world probably, like after any major crisis in the past, could have been a war, a pandemic, a natural disaster, has led afterwards to reconstruction, meaning by reconstruction, really the obsession and the desire for people to be free. And when it comes to jewelry, to watches, to enjoy again, to spend again, and therefore, as the threat of the virus will decrease, and it's already, I mean, on a very strong decrease in those countries which are very much advanced with vaccination, probably the luxury industry, generally speaking, in Bulgari, hopefully if we do a good job, will enter into a period of very, very strong desirability. And we can expect, I think, really a very strong boom on the luxury market. And I say that not only because looking back at history, it has ever happened, but also because I've been reading and discussing with some consulting companies, analysts, Alta Gamma, rather than Bain & Co. I think we all concur that the post-COVID will lead to, I don't like to use the word buying spree because it looks like a bit weird, but yeah, or I don't like either revenge buying, but I think people want freedom and people want, again, you know, to enjoy life. And when you enjoy life, the first thing which crosses your mind is beauty. The beauty of life, which can translate into, I mean, a wonderful stay at the Bali Bulgari resort, or it could be an amazing watch that during COVID times maybe you were hesitating to buy because your mind was busy with so many other priorities that it's something you postpone. And I think that as COVID will vanish gradually, we'll see a very, very strong momentum for the luxury industry and for Bulgari. And we organize ourselves for that, by the way, from an industrial side in terms of capacity to an organizational side. And what we'll keep from COVID is quite positive. Obviously, there is a tragedy, and this is very sad. But COVID has been, on the other hand, I think, for all businesses, an accelerator. I think, in terms of time to market. I think the aluminium is a good example. I mean, we have developed it in 9 months only. An accelerator in terms of digitalization and the fact that today we have such a good meeting together with Zoom and with all the is just a proof that we achieved in 1 year maybe what would have been achieved in 3. So we have progressed. And we can meet much more frequently, which is great. We can save also a lot of time not traveling as much as before. Right now, not at all, but let's say in a more normal post-COVID time, probably business traveling will be reduced markedly. For the better, because the better is chatting, meeting, discussing. It's not necessarily, I mean, being sitting in a plane for 12 hours, even though occasionally, obviously, you have to do it. And obviously, in terms of e-commerce, it has propelled, I think, the whole luxury industry to 5 years ahead in just 12 months. So those are the consequences, I think. And for the good of the industry, because obviously when you buy online, you buy more than when you cannot buy online. It's normal. I mean, it's Sunday evening, everything is closed. And all of a sudden, I mean, you think about that watch that you have seen, I mean, in Revolution. And you liked it, and you go on the web, and you see it, and you buy it. And maybe if you have not done that, just on the wake of your impulsion, the next morning waking up, you would have thought about your week, your appointments, and then the watch ID would have come second or third. So I think that really e-commerce develops the market size. And it's good that in 1 year we gain maybe 5 years. Now, this doesn't prevent to me directly and not to argue anything. We are currently leading, as we did last year, Geneva Watch Days second edition, which will take place in Geneva. Dates to be confirmed, but probably from the 31st of August to the 3rd or 4th of September. With a format very similar to last year. I think last year who could make it was very happy. Who could be part of it through, the digital facilities were quite happy as well. So this year we'll have eventually 3 appointments. One we had digitally with LVMH sister brands in January. The second one we have together with 37 other brands, including LVMH, but obviously many of the big names of industry right now with Watch and Wonders. And the third one will be very much like last year. Not necessarily the same brands. I would say the founding brands will be the same, but we are obviously open to more brands. I think our decentralized, self-managed system has proven its relevance, has proven its efficiency, and therefore I'm just happy that other brands are knocking at the door, because for the industry, the more brands are joining, the better for the industry, and Bulgari knows that without the industry, we wouldn't be Bulgari, and so we need the industry.
Jean-Christophe, what a pleasure it's been spending this time with you, and I will see you in August or September when you have Geneva Watch Days.
And that for sure. I will have very good time, and usually the weather is just amazing those days, so I can't wait myself.
Fantastic. Have a wonderful day and wonderful Watches and Wonder.
Thank you so much, Wei. Have a great day yourself too. See you soon. Bye-bye, my friend.